Welcome to Valemount Votes. This is VCTV's series of one-on-one interviews with the candidates for the upcoming Municipal, Regional District, and School Board District 57 or Robson Valley elections that are coming today. We're here with Owen Torgerson. Welcome, Owen.
Pleased to be here, Michael.
Thanks for being here. I think, why don't we just get started by finding out a little bit about you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Myself, well, essentially born and raised here. Been, exploring after high school, further education, but essentially I've been in and around this valley for 41 years. My folks brought me into this world in 1977 and pretty much been here ever since.
Okay, went to high school here?
I went to high school here, elementary school. Again, during high school, traveled and sought out some opportunities, and after high school, through university and college, and looking at some different career paths, but essentially the mountains called me back.
Great. And what do you do for a living?
Right now I'm in civil construction. I'm a operations lead for Sparrow Contracting, and we do a plethora of construction projects. Sand is the bane of most people, walking in always on the carpet, but I found a niche market where I sell it to golf courses in Alberta.
Good for you. Well, with all the building that's going on, I'm sure you're busy in town as well, right?
It can get.
Yeah, well, that's great, great. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to give you an opportunity to make an opening statement. All the candidates will have a chance to do this, and you have up to 3 minutes to do that, whatever you'd like to say. And if you just look right into this camera here and begin whenever you're ready. Sure.
Municipal governance is not an easy task. You're always at the forefront, and I'm pleased and thankful for my electoral colleagues to make this a race. The idea that serving one's village is something I really aspire to, and I'm looking forward to an honest and open campaign, and I hope that my opponents, my running teammates, are ready to be at their best, because I hope they know I'm going to be at my best. Looking back on the 4 years, Michael, I'm really appreciative of the team that I was part of. There were times that, and not just part of, I mean, we're not in maintenance mode yet. Inauguration will be later in November, so we still have lots of work to do. There were times where we did not all agree or mesh, but that's what you get when you have varying skill sets and backgrounds. But I still think we were there for Team Valemount, hashtag. I was especially thankful for all the mentorship throughout my committee appointments, through VARDA and Tourism Valemount and the Valemount Community Forest, emergency planning, the Kinder Morgan expansion, and I feel that throughout those appointments I was able to gain even further skill sets by going outside of my comfort zone. And I think moving forward, youth will play an integral role in the leadership of this village.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So we have a number of questions that we're going to ask you now. Most of these have been submitted by our viewers. And the first topic we're going to get into is housing, which I think is a hot button topic in the community right now. And we're currently experiencing a housing shortage, which is affecting home buyers, renters, seniors, and basically anyone who's seeking affordable housing in the community.
We're not alone, Michael.
Some may even call it a crisis. I've heard people refer to it as a crisis in town right now. It's difficult. It's a serious situation. It makes it difficult for not only local people, but for those moving to Valemount or potentially coming here for work. I've heard stories of qualified candidates who've had to reconsider positions because they couldn't find a home, or they couldn't purchase a suitable home for themselves and their families. The current council has taken some action on this. Council struck the Housing Committee back in the fall of 2016 to deal with housing data collection, strategic planning, funding of projects, that type of thing, zoning, bylaws, etc. And also, Council has agreed in principle to provide some land for an affordable housing project in the future, which are two good steps, I think, forward in the right direction. So we have two questions on housing for you. And the first question is, what do you believe is the role of municipal government in addressing the housing issues we have been and will continue to face? And after you discuss that, after you answer that, we'll discuss your ideas specifically on housing. But this one is on the role of municipal government. What do you think the role is?
Well, it's certainly an issue facing not just Valemount, but it clear across this nation. And you're absolutely right. There have been situations where qualified individuals have sought to gain employment here and have not been able to find suitable housing for them nor their families. There's one way, and I'll be frank, Michael, the $14 an hour doesn't pay the bills. It's about to be $15 an hour. And when your housing pricing is 45 or 50% of your wages versus 25 or 30 in other countries, it's really difficult to make a choice. Pay my hydro bill or pay my mortgage or pay my rent, or do I need a telephone? Do I need insurance on my car? The one thing municipalities can do, and I think throughout this campaign you're going to hear this word over and over and over again, is to create partnerships. The Ministry of Housing has allowed partnerships with nonprofit as well as for-profit developers. And you're going to see some very big changes coming down the pipe, and I think the local government here can take full advantage of that, where through land donations, through not increasing taxes right away, and having leased land, maybe not for sale, but leased land for market-priced housing, and combined with sensible, long-standing rental units.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, those are some definitely some ideas for municipal government's role. What do you think council should work on over the next 4 years to deal with Valemount's housing issues, and what specific plans on housing would you bring to the table if elected as mayor?
Good question. Just exactly that. Start creating those partnerships now. Work with the province, work with for-profit developers, work with the nonprofits. You know, we're one of the few municipalities in the province that still has a plethora of municipal-owned land. We have a beautiful chunk, 55 acres, right behind the high school, still central to downtown, still foot-friendly. You know, you don't need to drive to the grocery store in that location. I think it'd be an excellent start to begin the path of you know, adaptable housing in that region.
Right. So by that, do you mean the village perhaps putting it into a land trust or donating that land for affordable housing projects? Is that what you're getting at? I
would go the lease option, okay. $1, and then at least there's a timeline to that, and it can be reviewed at, you know, decade increments or half-century increments, where down the road perhaps housing will not be such an issue.
Right. Anything else you want to discuss on housing before we move forward?
There's the speculation that the ski hill is coming has really inflated prices, but I'll just say that being so close to both one of the most beautiful provincial parks and an amazing national park is a big reason for the non-market correction that we're seeing. Housing prices aren't going to go down; they're going to go up. Construction costs aren't going to go down. You know, a 2x4 that was worth $220 3 years ago on 1,000 board feet is now worth $660. That's a threefold increase in 3 years. Right. We as a municipality can only go so far to support for-profit, but we have an opportunity and the land base that we can all work together to create those key partnerships.
Okay. Great. Let's move on then to our second topic, which is economic development and economic diversity in the village. Valemount has been growing, as we've just been talking about, in terms of homes being sold and built and new businesses opening in the region. Tourism has also been on the rise. However, there's still much that can be done to foster further growth, especially in the business and industrial side. So we have two questions on economic development and economic diversification. The first question is, what are your ideas for stimulating economic development in Valemount? So generic bread and butter, right to the heart of the matter question. What would you do? What are your ideas?
I would encourage smaller value-added industry. The pie in the sky, that one big employer can have a huge emotional and life-draining consequence when those kind of things close. Mm-hmm. We're already seeing that these smaller mills, mining, rock quarries, combined, they're employing more than the one big employer. We're seeing, you know, Jason Alexander just off the charts expanding with his cedar plants. We've had proponents come in to try to sell their ideas to take on lands at the industrial park that the Valemount Community Forest recently purchased. I think by having low lease rates, we offer a competitive advantage for anybody that's looking to maybe ship their product. We can offset those costs by having, you know, vast amounts of prime industrial land readily available for anybody that wants to set up shop. And I think it's going to be those smaller operations that we can accommodate, and I think that's what is going to stimulate the economy.
Okay. The second question on economic diversity is, what is your definition of economic diversity, and how do you envision that unfolding here in Valemount?
We're already seeing it, Michael. We're seeing a huge fold increase in tourism. We're seeing more sustainable forestry practices. That in itself is a diversification, and I think moving forward, as tourism continues to grow, you're going to see those smaller shops open up, the smaller coffee shops, the smaller, and if we don't embrace that diversification, we will not have a solid, balanced economy.
So you see us as having lots of what you would call micro-industry here, or smaller industries like the Three Ranges Brewery and
something like that,
and smaller growers and mills, etc.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, let's move on then. Topic 3 is on air quality in Valemount. So according to the BC Lung Association's 2017 State of the Air report, Valemount had the worst measured air quality in all of BC in 2016, with nearly the double provincial annual average objective for PM 2.5 emissions, exceeding the provincial baseline of 25 micrograms per cubic meter on 72 out of the 365 days. And there were no wildfire-related smoke advisories issued during the summer of 2016. So this is the most current data that's available. The question is, do you have a plan for addressing this important health concern of poor air quality for Valemount? And if so, could you provide the specific actions you would recommend to help alleviate the situation?
Everybody's got I would say 80% of our village has a wood stove. We live in a micro-inversion environment in the wintertime, and it'll sit right here. My plan to address that is to bring in Fortis gas, have them build a vaporized plant, and contribute to the distribution system. I've already begun talks with that company, and hopefully we can have the will of the people speak, and it's not going to come freely. If you wish to upgrade your appliances to natural gas, you have that ability. But certainly that's, at least the air quality issue can be combated with much fewer emissions. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge proponent of geothermal, always have been. I began this trek working towards a geothermal future for since 2012. However, geothermal is not the end-all, And it's certainly not going to have an effect on mobile homes that don't have in-floor heating already. It will be able to offset electrical costs, which are mostly with the in-floor heating construction. But I think the easiest and most efficient way is to transition to natural gas, which will have a much cleaner emission output. I don't want to see any, I want to go down a path of fossil fuels at all, but we need something a little bit more healthier than wood smoke to choke on.
Could you elaborate a little bit on your discussions with Fortis?
Yeah, so this is going back a couple of years, but generally they would bring in about a $2.5 million vaporizer plant. Gas would be trucked and or trained or trunked, and about $1.5 million would be spent on their distribution lines. They would make an application to the BC utilities and go from there and recoup their investment over 30, 35 years. It's one of the few larger corporations I've dealt with that are ready to make those kind of investments. There are others that, oh yeah, we can do whatever you want, but we need some cash. Mm-hmm. I get that. Not everybody's willing to be that community style industry, but I think we can get the ball rolling and we can get it going quickly.
And they feel they can provide gas at a comparable rate to electricity, even with the extra cost of shipping the product here?
Less than electricity. Electricity is only going up.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure gas is too.
It is, but it's not on a two-tier system.
Right.
I mean, I have just a wood stove, Michael, and I hit step 2 or tier 2 every day, every billing cycle. Right. I don't have a large home. It's just the way it is. You hit step 2 no matter where you are in this valley.
Right.
You know, and those who, I don't even have a furnace, and I hit step 2. So those that have electrical heating, wow. Anything that we can do to, and that'll actually further diversify the economy and make life a little bit more affordable.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's encouraging news. Hopefully that moves forward. Let's move on to the topic of leadership and communication. So these are questions specifically for mayoral candidates. Well, the communication side applies to the councillor as well. So this is dealing with, as I said, leadership and communication as it relates to the office of mayor. The position of mayor, as you know, requires numerous skills. For example, team building, leadership, effective communication, the ability to present Valemount's issues to various levels of government, and a willingness to listen and respond to the concerns of Valemount residents in an open, fair, and transparent manner. So we have 2 questions on this, and the first one is dealing with the Chief Administrative Officer. So the position of Chief Administrative Officer for the village is an important one. They manage all the affairs of the village, as well as managing the village staff. Since in the last 4 years, there have been 7 CAOs and or interim CAOs for the village, resulting in hiring and termination costs for the taxpayer through, whatever the reasons may be, we've had to replace, as well as instability in the village operations due to the repeated turnover that happens when you bring on new people. It takes time to get them up to speed of this most senior administrative position. So the question is, if elected as mayor, what would you do to try to avoid the constant turnover in this critical CAO position?
That's a great question, Michael. The CAO is the single employee of council. That's it. We don't, the director of finance or the corporate officer, they're not employees of council. It is just the CAO. Right. It can be challenging. The CAO position has to have a priority for service delivery to the town, to the residents, also protecting the interests of the village. They have to make me look good at times when I'm not. and frankly have to keep me out of jail. That being said, moving forward, Michael, I think there's an opportunity here, particularly at election time. We're going to see a few CAOs around the province looking for work. It's just the nature of the game. And I think we'll be able to snag a couple of good ones, shortlist them, and work as a team. I think where council needs to improve on that is working as a team with their CAO, not just one or two or three or four going into the office at different times of the day. It's as a team, and I think moving forward we can establish that and really work towards that.
What do you think the key is to retaining them once you have them here?
Well, we got to house them first. You know, the previous few that have come through have either hoteled it or basement suites in somebody's house, or maybe a long-term rental. But got to get them here first. I think having, you know, the ski hill just on the horizon is attractive for a few of them, but once they're here, we really have to work, like I said, as a team. Right.
Is it time maybe to start thinking about what additional benefits can be offered to these folks? You know, for example, housing, where you'll work cooperatively with them to try to find housing that's suitable for them and their families. I think that's a big thing. If people can't find the housing they want, or if the housing is not suitable, that doesn't last very long. It grows old real quick.
Well, you know, no mortgager will give you funding for more than what the assessed value is. Some of these older homes here are assessed quite low, and the replacement value is way too high. So you have to, A, have to come with cash in your pocket, and B, be ready to be on a wait list of some form. Having the smaller lots that the village owns around town, there's an opportunity for the village just to make their own staff housing, for not just transitionary staffing, but permanent, for at least not permanently in that particular abode, but having that readily available for short-term staffing solutions.
Right. I mean, it's often about quality of life, you know. People come to a community like Valemount and they want a certain quality of life. Housing is a big part of that, but obviously where you live and the community that you live in is a big part of that as well. And I think people generally gather around the CAOs here, and like they do at most new people that come into the community, and make them feel welcome and make them feel a part of it. So hopefully we can solve that, because we've had good people in the past, and we've had people stay for long periods in the past, and it'd be nice to be able to get back into that again.
Well, and the challenge there, Michael, is having suitable employment, diverse employment, where the whole family can join the CAO at the get-go, where a few examples over the last administration, you had separated families for a majority of their work tenure here, and that can be stressful.
Yeah, very difficult. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the second question on leadership and communication, and this is a two-part question. It deals with your personal leadership and communication style. And first of all, how would you describe your leadership style, and what do you plan to do, if elected, to effectively lead and build strong teamwork with the new council?
You got to think of this as a sports tryout. I've had 10 scouts kind of show management that I can play in a team situation. The skill set that I've learned growing up here, and I still remember where I come from. Fascinating that when you take on a mantle or a title of this magnitude, it seems to generate some sort of, oh, I'm more important now that I have this position, or this sense of self-importance. That's not me. I will earn respect, not demand respect, and continue to work in a team-based environment that is so desperately needed for those chambers. You know, the players that are coming into that game are diverse, you know, a multitude of backgrounds. We're going to have to find an even ground that we can all play together, and moving forward, represent this town the best way we know how. And that's it. You got to be a team. Individuals don't win the game.
Right. But you do need a manager. And like it or don't like it, being the mayor of a community, there is a face you are representing, right? And I think people would like to know, get a sense of how you lead. Have you had any kind of chairmanship positions on boards or other things, and that you could kind of maybe compare how you lead? You know, some people are, you know, they lead by example. Some people lead by consensus building. Some people lead with no consensus building, and that's obviously the way you don't want to be. So, what would you say would be your approach to?
You know, I've been the president of the Valemount Marine Association since 2014. Mm-hmm. I think knowing time management skills will play a huge role in, you know, just determining how much you can do for each individual. I've always volunteered in those kind of roles, and I think, you know, serving one's village is certainly the creme de la creme. Leadership style, you know, is not always about grabbing and forcing. It's about being convincing, and again it is working together. The roles that I've taken on in my personal life is, if it's not getting done, just go ahead and do it. This environment, you have to take a step back, see why it's not being done, or why it's being done a particular way. And sometimes I may not always like it, but I'm just one voice on that council, and we have to work together if we're going to move forward.
Right, right. Okay, well, let's move on to the second part of this question, which is communication. So during this council term, no formal communication policy has been developed. Town hall meetings have been stopped. One of the media outlets in Valemount, it's not VCTV, has had trouble getting information from the current mayor. Council hasn't seemed to do anything to make it easier for residents to communicate with both council and the mayor. And for example, and I bring this up because it's kind of a personal bugbear of mine, but other people talk about it as well. And it's this idea of, if someone wants to speak, if they want to be a delegation to council, they have to have their delegation request in by Thursday at noon. Whereas the agenda doesn't come out until Friday afternoon. So you're not sure what's on the agenda. If you want, it's kind of a catch-22. You're not sure what to speak to because you haven't seen what's on the agenda for that. So it makes it a little bit confusing. Public comments are permitted at council meetings, of course. However, they're limited to discussing items that are on that particular agenda and at the end of the council meeting. And sometimes this is after council has already discussed an item and voted on it, which makes the input, you know, valid to express an opinion. However, it carries no input for a future vote, potentially, if it's already been discussed. So these are some of the things that the question is then, if you're elected, what would you do as mayor to improve communication between mayor and council and Valemount residents and even the media to provide a more open, fair, and transparent process that will engage people rather than deter them from publicly participating in council?
You're not alone, Michael. People have stated to me that they're not being heard. We need improvements in communication. That's a given. People feel that their elected officials need to be talking with them, not just a select group or a clique over here or over there, but to all of them, regardless of their income or regardless of their position in life. People are people, and they just want to be heard, and that's why I'm here. I'm not someone that is so far-fetched over here or so concerned with something over here that we can't sit down and have a conversation. We live in a very technologically advanced society, and there's ways for people to communicate their concerns or their issues post publishing of the agenda through our website, the village website. It needs to be improved a little bit. All of our email addresses are there. Pretty much everybody that knows me knows my cell number. I can give it to you if you wish. And we just have those conversations. I've seen examples for the school trustees board. They have an opportunity prior to the meeting itself, so they convene the meeting, and they open the meeting and then they invite input from the public. That is one thing that could be implemented. You know, they have to check with other councils to see what's working for them and what's not. I mean, if it's not going to make things easier for people, and then why have it? Right. But at least I'm here, I'm for the people, because I am one of the people, and they can call me day or night.
Don't you feel as a counselor, a current counselor, that it would give you more information to deal with if you heard people's concerns before you brought a matter to the table and voted on it?
It depends on the decision about to be made. Mm-hmm. There are certain processes. You know, there's public hearings, for example, for rezoning and for variances and things of that nature. Those are opportunities to be heard. But I think people are civically engaged already. You know, there's ways that they can communicate, and a lot of people aren't comfortable being in front of your cameras. I'm one of them. So coming to council with an issue when it can just be voiced on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram for a reason or another that they're happy or unhappy. People don't take that avenue to come to the chambers to let you know, and I'm just here to tell them we can meet face to face, we can talk to each other, you can text me, you can, sorry, that's mine.
Right. So you've obviously thought about this, but you don't have any specific ideas or a package of ideas that you would put forward at this point. No. But you're open to. I'm
open to change.
To more communication.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great.
Yeah. There's small town, and you got to understand, we don't have a communications officer here. Right. Just not going to pay for one unless you want one. We can raise your taxes. That's easy. But I think once you have a stable administration and council working as a team, more of a team, I think you're going to see improvements in communication.
Okay, great. Let's move on to our fifth topic, which is conflict of interest. On May the 26th of 2015, village staff presented Policy 64 to Council, which was an enhanced local conflict of interest policy for councils as recommended by BC Solicitor General. The Local Government Management Association of BC and the Union of BC Municipalities believe that enhanced clarifications of conflict of interest guidelines may be needed in light of the BC Court of Appeals Schlenker decision, which was on Salt Spring Island.
Schlenker versus Tomlinson?
That's the one, yes, thank you. And introduced a number of considerations for staff and elected officials when determining when elected officials may be in a conflict of interest, which could be contrary to what's in the community charter. Policy 64 was narrowly adopted, as you may recall, by a 3-2 vote, with Councillor Reimer and Mayor Townsend opposing. On January 12, 2016, Policy 64 was rescinded by a 3-1 vote, with only Councillor Salt opposing, with the recommendation that the conflict of interest guidelines outlined in the community charter under Part 4, Division 6 be used as they had been in the past. The question then is, do you believe that conflict of interest guidelines stronger than those contained in the community charter are necessary? And if so, would you support once again putting forth a locally tailored set of conflict of interest guidelines and definitions?
I think, Michael, I have been out of the chambers more than any other elected official combined. I take that very seriously. The old adage, when in doubt, get out. It baffles me that we even need to have policies like this, that when there's an indirect or direct or pecuniary conflict, it should be recognized right away, and you're just not part of that decision-making process. I work for the village. You know, I'm contract welding, snow removal, but I'm not part of that decision-making process. You know, if it's tailor-made for a few contractors to do that particular skill set, it's matrixed and it's gone over by staff. And you know, WCB, check. Roadway insurance, check. Availability, check. Equipment, check. And they make their decision from there. I'm not part of that process. I've done work for Tourism Valemount, you know, taking down signs, putting up signs, but I'm not part of that decision-making process. I try to stay arm's length at any given opportunity, so that there is no general conflict. There's some perceived, oh, well, he's councillor, so he gets the work. I'm here to tell you that I'm never part of that decision-making process. Having a tailor-made conflict resolution, you know, again, when in doubt, get out. And perception and reputation will define how people view it. But there's always room for improvement with conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. The Tomlinson case is an interesting one. So interesting that is now case law. And I'm looking forward to reviewing it in more detail to bring myself up to speed on that particular case and what it represents for me going down the road.
All right. Well, UBCM and the LGMA clearly feel that, along with legal decisions that have been made in the past and other law firms, that it's a very, very slippery slope. And as you said, erring on the side of caution is always the wisest thing to do. So given that, I'll just again repeat the question, because I want a clear answer from you. Do you support what we're doing now as a village in terms of sticking with what's in the charter, or do you think stronger conflict of interest guidelines are appropriate?
Well, any politician will tell you it's working just fine, but we can always get better. So yeah, I'm in support of having a stronger set of conflict of interest rulings.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on to topic 6, and this is dealing with the Rainbow Crosswalk and inclusion. According to Vancouver's Georgia Straight newspaper, as of June 11th, 2018, there are now 42 Rainbow Crosswalks in British Columbia. As of, on July the 26th, Council voted, of 2016, Council voted against installing a Rainbow Crosswalk here, citing cost and safety concerns. Prince George installed one at a cost of $6,000, which is a cold fusion, plasticky kind of low maintenance kind of idea. Is that on George Street,
the five-way intersection?
Yes, yes. Prince Rupert installed theirs for $1,850, which is a painted version like many other people done. A study conducted by the City of Edmonton showed that there have been no safety problems with their 6 crosswalks. They found that the crosswalks did not decrease pedestrian safety. And our research here at VCTV shows that Valemount is one of only 3 communities in BC to vote against Rainbow Crosswalks.
Who's the other 2?
The other 2 are Merritt and Powell River.
Oh, okay.
Or Campbell River. Campbell River, I believe, yeah. Now, some have not voted at all, but we're one of 3 that have voted against. The question is, given that Rainbow Crosswalks are seen as a recognition that a community is considered LGBTQ2 friendly, if elected... Plus, yeah, I'm sorry, there's one more in there. Okay.
That's getting longer every day.
It's getting longer. If elected, would you support the installation of a Rainbow Crosswalk on a public street in Valemount, and why or why not?
Absolutely, Michael. It's not just about the inclusion of a lifestyle. It's about being accepting of all lifestyles. Crime-free lifestyles, I should probably add. Right. So yeah, I'm in full support. Why not? Let's show that we're accepting of all, not just you or I or he or she. I mean, why not?
Okay, thank you. Topic 7, cannabis. So this is something that's coming up very quickly.
Very quickly.
Less than 3 weeks now. Recreational cannabis use becomes legal in Canada, as you know, on October the 17th of this year. It could potentially have a major impact in Valemount and other communities. Municipalities across Canada are considering their options with regards to cannabis right now. So this is a two-part question. The first part is, if elected as mayor, would you support and encourage entrepreneurs to start up marijuana retail outlets in the community, or support only sales through BC government cannabis stores, or are you in favor of banning the sale of recreational marijuana sales in Valemount outright?
I'm not against banning the sales. I mean, October 17th is a fairly significant date. I mean, for the second time in our nation's history, cannabis is going to be legal. The impacts, we have no idea what the impacts are going to be. There's been a download from the feds to the province to municipalities to completely handle this at the local level. We will have the choice to limit where recreational cannabis retailers can operate. We will have the ability to permit commercial growing opportunities and operations. We will have the opportunity to limit where it is consumed, i.e., can you light up right in front of IGA? Do we treat it like alcohol? You can walk down the street with your six-pack, but don't think you can open up one and just continue walking. Do we want it in our parks? Do we want it in the downtown area? Do we want it right outside your church? I don't know. That's for you to tell me. And I'm open to that. Should at-home growers be regulated in fire and safety inspections to grow and cultivate for plants, so that at least first responders know that if they are attending your home, the wiring is not going to completely limit their response. And this is why I'm going to urge council to direct staff to put out a comprehensive and education-based survey so that you can do exactly that. You tell us what you want. One example I can think of is the city of Revelstoke. I encourage you to look it up. It's a great, I think it's 25 questions. Doesn't take very long. They have a 10-minute primer, and includes such things as, where do you want to see it? Where don't you want to see it? And it should not be up to council with a topic this large. It should not be up to 5 people to tell you where it's going to be. It should be up to the thousands of people that live here, or 1,000 people that live here, to tell us where they want to see it or not.
All right. So you haven't formed any opinions yet on which way you'd personally like to see it?
There's not enough data. I mean, the downloading is pretty extreme. They've gone ahead and they're going to legislate the ability for me and you and anybody else that wants to consume recreational marijuana and to buy it. Canada Post is going to be our new mule, so to speak.
I'm not sure they'd like that.
And they're going on strike, so there's going to be a lot of people unhappy. But with that downloading, the information isn't flowing either. And I have more questions than opinions at this point. I mean, we need more data in order to make a sound decision.
Right. So this, I guess, is not really a question for you as a future mayor, although we've talked a little bit about that. It's an urgent matter that's coming up right away. Still in your term in council, the floodgates open on October the 17th, and right now do we have a policy as a village in terms of cannabis use when it becomes legal? Is there anything on the books?
No, there isn't. We have zoning requirements currently in place for growers,
right.
But we don't have any legislation in place currently, bylaws or otherwise, to define where and how and the whats,
right,
and the what ifs.
Okay. Second part of this question is, I think you touched on it a little bit, but what do you believe should be the laws on cannabis growing in the village proper?
I think they should be, I think there needs to be a stipulation that, that heavily scrutinized in terms of safety. There's been a big push from the UBCM membership that growers not only should be regulated under fire and electrical and things of that nature, but also aroma. Not everybody enjoys that scent, and I don't blame them. I mean, I can't stand cigarette smoke, but anybody can just light up a cigarette, regardless. I think those three things need to be heavily scrutinized when setting up a commercial grow-up or even for personal use. I think you need to be able to use some sort of charcoal filter or some sort of scent changing filter that people aren't bothered by it. And I think you need to be under you know, a more heavily stringent fire and safety, especially electrical, for anybody that for whatever reason needs to respond to your health, your situation. All
right. So fair to say this will be one of the first topics that the new council will be tackling is sales, use, all of those things that you mentioned.
There's been a lot of discussion brought up about, hey, can I open up a dispensary on October 18th? Not yet. But we'll have to be working diligently towards either that reality or not making it a reality at all.
Yeah, that's reading through the list of municipalities and what they're doing. It's a wide range. Some have banned sales outright for now until they get more information. Some have restricted zoning to put retail outlets for cannabis sales near liquor stores in that same kind of zoning there, and some have kind of a combination of restrictions and freedoms in there. So it's yeah.
And I think it's more than just a data search or a, you know. This is why I want to hear, and I think this is why council should open up their ears to the people. They'll tell you. And I think having more than just a survey, but also engage the community, you will help us decide how that's going to go.
Perhaps a town hall.
Ooh.
Okay. Sorry. Last question for you deals with traffic congestion and parking issues, and
congestion.
Well, in one specific area, and I think everyone in Valemount, well, I don't know if everyone would agree with me, but many people are thrilled that Timmy's is here, that Tim Hortons is open. But it has created some issues in terms of traffic congestion, parking, and a kind of a dangerous situation on the corner of 5th and Caris Drive there. And also the Main Street business area, vehicles are parking on the sides of the roads and creating a little bit of a hazard kind of in that area. So the question...
Sorry, you're going to have to help me out there. What business area?
Main Street.
Oh, okay, Main
Main Street near the Swiss Bakery,
yeah, okay.
Kind of in that area. People are parking kind of half on the road and half on the shoulder, and sometimes even on the Bigfoot Trail to kind of do that. The question is, what do you feel needs to be done to help that situation, specifically on Caris Drive and then perhaps on Main Street as well?
Well, I think we're going to be seeing, and I've seen it already, a bit of a diversion from the centralized automobile issue just with the Tims and Caris Drive. I think having the Shell now open with the subway included, we're seeing less and less congestion in that area. Parking down on Main Street, it's a difficult one. You've got a federally regulated railroad that says you shall not come within 50 feet of my track. And we have a walking trail that is inches outside of that 50 feet. So you can't go south and you can't go north because the building's on the north side. I'm not sure what the solution is there, I'll be honest with you. You know, I don't encourage the Swiss Bakery to take off their balcony to assist with parking. And I certainly don't encourage any destruction of anybody's fence line to open up parking as well. I mean, it's a special development area, and you know,
Right.
I'll be honest, I don't know what the solution
Perhaps
is.
just, you know, signage and better enforcement might
The
might be
signage
keys.
is great if people read it.
Mhm.
You know, I can print you off 50 signs and guaranteed you'll only read one.
Right.
And you'll give me a sign back.
Well, you and I both know this is a small town, and we tend to park where we think is convenient for us, and sometimes it's two wheels on the road and two wheels on the shoulder. And
I think one solution for Carrish Drive is to open up a conversation with the Trucking Association down in Victoria, getting some safety memos out to these larger companies that still choose to block and obstruct laneways. I, for one, am not going to call 911 to raise a parking issue.
Mm-hmm.
I will just avoid that area if I need to.
it is a dangerous corner, and I found myself several times having to turn one way or the other and having cars come off the highway, not looking, and just zipping through the intersection with very little look. You really have to look almost 5 ways there to see where everybody's coming from and which driveway they're coming in and out of there. And I don't know what can be done, but I think I've heard a lot of people mention that it's kind of become a little scary corner there.
It can be. I'm not going to. I'm there with you. This is why planners have crystal balls, and 35 years ago, didn't see this coming.
No, of course. Yeah.
That being said, again, a conversation can be made, at least for the laneway obstruction, and I think that can be heard down in Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question is an individual question. It's kind of been tailored for you.
Ooh.
And it's not too complicated, so I'm just going to give you a chance to
Two-syllable
jump
words?
in. Yeah, no. What would you say is the most important thing that you personally have learned in your term as a councillor that you feel will help you be a good leader and a team builder for the community which we have now that's in transition?
It's okay to be outside of your comfort zone. I've always thought of myself as a mixed extrovert, introvert, and public speaking is not one of my great strengths. The council appointments that I've had the honor of having, just been wonderful. You know, you gain some valuable relationships, and the opportunity to strengthen those relationships through mentorship, and I've just never been more thankful for that. I think the greatest thing that I've been able to do is to develop a network across the province, so that, because we're not here alone, there's help out there, there's funding opportunities, there's ways of doing it better, and we can always be better. And just from picking up the phone and bouncing off an idea with a colleague in a neighboring town or even in a city, you know, there's always ways to be better, and I'm just striving to be that person.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for answering all of our questions, and as we did at the beginning when you had your opening statement, you now have up to 3 minutes to make a closing statement or closing remarks, and if you just want to look into this camera, and whenever you're ready, you can begin.
So, why vote for me? I've been around, been here for a bit. You know, I know where I come from. I grew up here. I love this town, and I love the people in it. You know, as mayor, I'm not going to take on that mindset that I'm better than anybody else. I'm still going to say hello. I'm still going to give you a firm handshake, and I'm still going to remember your name because that's who I am. I'm not going to be that person that thinks they're any larger than life, and win or lose, I'm still with you all the way.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Owen. Appreciate your candor and answering all those questions for us. I want to make sure that people get out and vote. That's the most important thing. Exercise your right that people have fought so hard for us to have. Get out there and vote. Advance voting for mayor and council will be on Wednesday, October the 10th, and that will be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Village Council Chambers, which is 735 Cranberry Lake Road. General voting day, of course, is Saturday, October the 20th, and the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. there as well, and that will be at the Valemount Community Hall, which is at 101 Gore Street. Well, thank you, Owen, for coming in. I appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity, Michael.
Best of luck, and I want to thank you all for watching.